Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. The Crown Princess Consort. I had been his wedded wife for 10 years, yet when he ascended the throne, he merely conferred upon me the title of noble consort. I rose calmly to receive the imperial decree. Afterward, I asked the young eunuch who had delivered it, and who, then, will be the empress? The little eunuch trembled and dared not meet my eyes. It is her ladyship show. A faint smile touched my lips. I waved my hand, dismissing him. Inside the hall, the palace maids all watched my expression with great caution, but I simply held the imperial edict in my arms and laughed softly. How ridiculous! In this world, there was actually an empress who was enthroned purely for love. 2 months passed after the ceremony conferring the title of noble consort. I had still not met the new empress, but I did meet the emperor. The reason was simple. The edict appointing the empress had been withheld by the Grand Secretariat for 2 full months. The matter had infuriated him to the point that he had nearly resorted to the court's punishment rods. And so, at this moment when the newly enthroned emperor found himself cornered by the court officials, he stormed straight into my palace. The moment he entered, he spoke without preamble. Mayan, write a memorial requesting to relinquish the position of empress. I stared at him in astonishment. Was this truly the solution the emperor had come up with? Adrian Zheng looked extremely irritated. There is no other way right now. If you voluntarily request to give up the empress's seat, the matter will be much easier to resolve. A cold laugh escaped me. The emperor has never once offered an explanation, yet you already intend to seize my rightful position as empress, and now you expect me to willingly submit a memorial relinquishing it? Your Majesty must be dreaming. My refusal clearly angered him. Serena Shao, he snapped, his voice sharp. I already told you long ago, there is no longer any affection between us. In my heart, there is only Selena Zhou. My voice softened with sorrow. Perhaps there is no love left between your Majesty and me. But does even 10 years of shared grace and duty mean nothing? I was raised by Grand Empress Dowager Catherine since childhood. In my heart, I thought of nothing but how to become your Highness's crown princess. How to help you accomplish your great ambitions and rule the realm. For 5 years in the Eastern Palace, I never once acted arrogant or jealous. I devoted myself entirely to managing the household and raising your children. You saw all of it clearly. Even Sister Zhou has never once spoken a word of complaint against me. So what wrong have I committed? That I must suffer such humiliation, being reduced from wife to concubine? I have given everything to your Majesty. Even my child. My child. The more I spoke, the darker Adrian Zheng's expression became. By the time I finished my final sentence, he suddenly shouted, "Enough! What nonsense are you talking about?" Tears streamed down my face. He seemed slightly unable to bear the sight. After taking a deep breath, he said, "Tomorrow, I want to see your memorial. Otherwise do not blame me for disregarding past feelings." With tear-filled eyes, I watched him hurry away. Jade immediately stepped forward to support me. "Your Ladyship. What should we do? Must we truly write that memorial?" Beside her, Lotus was so furious that tears burst from her eyes. This is utterly humiliating. Back then His Majesty swore eternal vows with your Ladyship, yet now those vows might as well have been fed to the dogs. Watch your words, I said sternly. Jade, Lotus. Things are no longer the same as they were in the Eastern Palace. You are now the chief maids of the noble consort's palace. Every word and action you take represents my intentions. Such disrespectful words must never be spoken again." Jade's face was filled with grief and anger. "You are the rightful wife personally chosen for His Majesty by Grand Empress Dowager Catherine. Must you really accept becoming merely a noble consort?" I said nothing. Instead, I took the handkerchief offered by a young maid and washed my face twice in the warm bowl of rosewater until no trace of tears remained. Then I signaled for the maids to take the water away. A gentle smile appeared on my lips. A noble consort is still a noble consort. If His Majesty insists on doing things his own way, what benefit would there be if I resisted stubbornly? Jade hesitated. "But your ladyship, are we truly going to submit a memorial relinquishing the Empress's position?" "The Empress's seat can no longer be kept," I said quietly, "but as for submitting a memorial to give it up, never." My voice lowered slightly. "Must we suffer the loss and still allow them to enjoy the benefits? How could such a good bargain exist in this world?" The next day, news spread from the inner palace. Noble consort Xiao had fallen gravely ill. Rumors circulated that the previous night the emperor had visited noble consort Xiao, said something to her, and then stormed away in anger. That very night, the noble consort suddenly collapsed and could not rise from her bed. When the imperial physicians arrived to examine her, the noble consort vomited blood, throwing the entire palace into panic. Even the physicians could find no cure. They could only say, "The noble consort has suffered deep emotional distress. Her blood and vital energy have surged violently toward the heart, disrupting her meridians. She must rest quietly and must not suffer any further shock." The moment those words spread, the entire palace erupted in whispers. Everyone knew that noble consort Xiao had always been in excellent health, yet now she had fallen ill from rage and heartbreak. Not only the court officials, even the imperial consorts in the harem, could hardly keep from feeling indignant. At this moment, however, I was reclining leisurely against the head of my bed, slowly eating the tribute grapes sent from the southern provinces. Meanwhile, Lotus was recounting what had happened that morning when she went to see Adrian Zheng. "The moment this servant saw His Majesty, I burst into tears. I said that your ladyship had been forcing yourself to write the memorial relinquishing the Empress's seat. But halfway through writing it, your ladyship suddenly vomited blood. Now her ladyship lies unconscious on the bed, without the strength to continue writing. She only instructed this servant to come and report that if her ladyship is already gravely ill and unable to manage the 6 palaces, then this empress's position is meaningless. It would be better for your Majesty to appoint someone else as empress." Lotus told the story vividly. "When this servant presented the memorial, your Majesty should have seen the emperor's expression at that moment. It darkened instantly. After that he asked this servant something, but this servant could only keep kowtowing and crying. In the end His Majesty grew angry and ordered this servant to withdraw immediately." Jade handed me a peeled grape. All that effort in the middle of the night was not wasted. We caught 2 chickens and got 3 full bowls of blood. Just the memorial alone soaked up an entire bowl. No wonder it made people feel uneasy. I nearly felt nauseated again. The plan had been my own idea. I had obtained some fresh chicken blood, part of it poured onto the memorial to make it appear as though I had coughed up blood in grief. The rest I poured into a chicken intestine and swallowed. Then, when the imperial physicians arrived, I vomited blood right in front of them, real blood. Who could possibly distinguish whether it was human blood or chicken blood? When the physicians could find no illness, they naturally concluded that I had fallen suddenly ill because I was deeply aggrieved at being demoted from wife to concubine. As for where we obtained fresh chicken blood in the middle of the night, although palace regulations clearly stated that consorts connecting privately with the imperial kitchen was a grave offense, Serena Shao had been brought into the palace by Grand Empress Dowager Catherine at the age of 8 for education. From the time I married the crown prince until I was granted the title of noble consort, I had spent more than a decade navigating the palace. I had long placed my own people throughout the Forbidden Palace. Obtaining 2 chickens from the imperial kitchen was hardly difficult. As long as silver reached the right hands, everything could be settled, and silver, within the inner palace, I had rewards bestowed by Grand Empress Dowager Catherine. Outside the palace, the Shao family supported me. In the entire harem, the wealthiest person was probably me, Serena Shao. From then on, I rested peacefully in my palace, recuperating. The court officials eventually stopped arguing and reluctantly agreed to establish Selena Zhou as empress. The struggle over the empress's seat, which had lasted 3 months since the new emperor's accession, finally came to an end. Both inside and outside the palace, and even among the common people in the capital, many pitied me. Because the emperor favored another woman, I had lost the throne of empress. Selena Zhou officially became the empress and took control of the 6 palaces. As for me, I lay in a small, remote palace, living a frail and lingering existence. An improper rise to power inevitably loses the hearts of the people, I murmured softly while gazing toward Phoenix Ceremony Palace. Don't be in such a hurry. This is only the beginning. We still have plenty of time. 3 months later, I entered the palace to pay respects to the empress for the first time. During those 3 months, I had been ordered to remain in my palace to recuperate, essentially placed under house arrest. I was not required to attend any palace affairs. All the minor concubines who had previously lived in my palace were also transferred away. It seemed they feared that during my illness I might secretly form factions. I paid it no mind. My only concern was restoring my health. Did they really think that once I relinquished the empress's seat they would leave me in peace? They were already worrying about the future, but the troubles ahead would certainly be far more numerous. I quietly instructed Jade and Lotus, the Forbidden Palace has never been a place where people live easily. Anyone who enters eventually becomes tainted. Besides, Selena Zhou is not a generous person. Today was the day the entire harem came to pay respects to the empress. It was also the first day my confinement was lifted. I rose early and had the servants carefully dress me. I wore a pale white palace robe, extremely simple in style, and placed a few silk flowers in my hair before stepping outside. This attire was probably not even as splendid as that of some favored noble ladies in the palace. Hopefully the Empress in Phoenix Ceremony Palace would understand, this was me giving her face. She had better not fail to appreciate it. This humble consort, of the Shao family, pays respect to Her Majesty the Empress. May Your Majesty enjoy boundless blessings and eternal peace. I stepped forward and respectfully performed a full kowtow before the main hall of Phoenix Ceremony Palace. Selena Zhou sat upon the throne and did not move. With my head lowered, I could still hear the faint clinking of teacups. Was she trying to intimidate me? I sighed inwardly. Selena Zhou was still the same as before, always acting purely according to her own will. Making things difficult for me at this moment brought her no benefit. Did she not realize that? Of course she did. But she had never liked me from the beginning. Now that she finally had the chance to suppress me, how could she not take advantage of it? So I simply continued kneeling. Perhaps the Empress had already finished 1 cup of tea, yet she still did not allow me to rise. One by one, the other consorts entered the hall. All they saw was noble consort Shao kneeling on the ground, hardly daring to breathe. After quite some time, I heard the doors of Phoenix Ceremony Palace close. Clearly, all the consorts had arrived. she intended to use me to display her authority. I remained silent, but silence did not mean I was not calculating. Even while kneeling there, my mind had already begun devising how to spread this matter throughout the inner palace, the outer court, and even the entire imperial court. But before I could finish thinking it through, I heard someone speak. "Your Majesty the Empress, the noble consort has only just recovered from illness. She may not be able to endure kneeling for so long. I beg your Majesty to show mercy and allow her to rise." It was Consort who, I understood immediately. She had once been a consort of the Crown Prince. In terms of seniority, she even held more standing than Selina Zhou. Moreover, she had given birth to one son and one daughter. Only those who had served in the Crown Prince's residence for many years dared speak to the Empress like this. "Consort who? What do you mean by that?" "The Empress is the mistress of the 6 palaces. Whoever she orders to kneel must kneel. Since when was it the place of us consorts to interfere?" A soft, coquettish voice rang out. I froze slightly in surprise. In this palace, who dares speak so arrogantly? I had never heard that voice before. She was certainly not someone who had followed us up from the Crown Prince's residence. Most likely she had entered the palace only after the Emperor ascended the throne, and judging from her tone, she must be greatly favored. I felt rather astonished. Back when I managed the Crown Prince's household, what favored concubine would have dared to behave so insolently? Now that they were no longer under my authority, it seemed that Selina Zhou's management of the harem was rather lacking. I could not help feeling somewhat dissatisfied. Selina Zhou gave a light cough. "That is enough. Do not be rude." She paused for a moment, then continued, "Look at my poor memory. I was so busy drinking tea that I forgot my sister is still kneeling below. Quickly, rise." With Jade's help, I slowly stood up. My steps were slightly unsteady as I walked over and sat on the seat to the Empress's left. At this moment, Selina Zhou wore a gentle smile. "Noble consort, you have been recuperating for several months now. I'm afraid you have not yet met the new sisters who have entered the palace, have you?" Inwardly, I wished she would soon forget everything like someone suffering from memory loss. But outwardly, I smiled politely. "Your Majesty speaks the truth. When the imperial selection of beauties took place, this humble consort truly knew nothing about it. They must all be stunning beauties. Your Majesty should kindly allow this consort to become acquainted with them." The moment I mentioned the word stunning beauties, the Empress's expression darkened briefly, but she quickly regained her composure. "These two are Lillian Hu, Consort Hu, and Yvonne Yi, both daughters of meritorious families. As for Lady Zhao, Lady Sun, and Lady Wei, they were selected from among the common people. Noble consort should get along well with them. If they behave improperly, you may instruct them directly." I thought to myself that I had no need to instruct anyone anymore. That was now her responsibility. Ignoring my thoughts, the Empress continued speaking, reminding everyone to follow palace regulations. She had only just begun when suddenly someone entered to report, "Your Majesty, someone from Hongning Palace has arrived with a message. The third prince wishes to come and pay his respects to your Majesty." The Empress's eyes lit up instantly. "Let him enter at once." Truthfully, I also felt a surge of excitement. According to palace custom, princes and princesses were raised in separate palaces under the Empress's supervision. Their birth mothers could only see them a few times each month, back when we lived in the Crown Prince's residence. I personally raised Lucas Zheng, Julian Zheng, Victor Zheng, and several princesses. Among them, the child I loved most was the third prince, Julian Zheng. He was Selina Zhou's son, because his mother was the emperor's most favored woman and he had a high chance of being named crown prince. I had devoted even more effort to educating him. From reading and horsemanship to moral cultivation, Julian had always been a good child. Intelligent and diligent, he understood things the moment they were explained. Although he was only 8 years old, he already carried the bearing of a future heir. Julian entered the hall and performed a respectful salute. "Your son greets Mother Empress." Selina Zhou beamed with delight. "Ming'er, come to Mother Empress." But Julian first knelt before me. "Your son greets Mother Consort." "Has Mother Consort's health improved?" He looked at me intently. "Ming'er sees that Mother Consort's complexion is still not very good. You should rest more and take your medicine regularly." Only after saying this did he reluctantly walk over to the Empress. My eyes nearly filled with tears, as expected of the child I had raised since he was young. Among everyone present today, only Julian had asked about my health, but the Empress's expression had turned rather dark. She forced a smile, gently stroked Julian's hair, and asked him about his studies and daily life. Then she instructed the servants to escort him into the inner hall for refreshments. The moment Julian left, the Empress turned back and glared at me. Then she addressed the consorts. "The Forbidden Palace has its own rules. Yesterday this palace discussed the matter with His Majesty. From now on, the princes and princesses will be raised in Hongning Palace under this palace's supervision. Their birth mothers may only visit them during festivals or once each month." She paused deliberately, casting a glance toward me. "Otherwise, they are not permitted to step even half a step into Hongning Palace." Before I could speak, Consort Hu cried out in shock. "Once a month?" But before this, it was once every 3 days. The Empress looked at her with a warning gaze, but Consort Hu paid no attention. She stepped forward and knelt before the Empress. "Your Majesty, the first princess and the fourth prince cannot go without seeing this consort." "I beg your Majesty, I wonder why Consort Hu seems to be opposing the Empress everywhere today." That soft, coquettish voice spoke again. "Such rude and improper conduct. How can it resemble the behavior of a consort of your rank?" The tone sounded gentle, yet the sharpness beneath it was unmistakable. I turned coldly to look. So it was Lillian Hu, Consort Hu, a new concubine who had entered the palace not long ago. Judging from the dazzling jewelry adorning her body, she must be extremely favored by the emperor, but speaking so arrogantly. It clearly showed a lack of proper upbringing. I glanced towards Selina Zhou. If it were me, I would never tolerate such a person. Yet the Empress seemed unconcerned. This woman repeatedly spoke up in defense of the Empress. She was clearly a loyal pawn. My gaze swept across the other consorts. The mother of the first prince had already passed away. The second prince had died young. The mother of Princess Sophia was Lady Wang, while the mother of Princess Elena was Lady Gua. Both women looked as though they were about to kneel and beg for mercy, but Consort Hu's words had frightened them into remaining frozen in place. They could only look toward the Empress with pleading eyes. I sighed quietly. Then I heard the Empress speak angrily. "Consort Hu, are you implying that this palace does not know how to care for the imperial children? If you enjoy kneeling so much, then go kneel in the side hall. Kneel there for 1 hour, then return to your palace and reflect on your behavior." After saying this, she turned her gaze toward me. "The noble consort's health has not yet fully recovered. Why bother coming here? Go back and rest. This palace no longer requires you to come and pay respects." After saying this, Selina Zhou angrily waved her sleeve. "All of you may leave." With that, she turned and returned to the inner hall. The consorts exchanged glances with one another. Soon, the only sound left in the hall was the quiet sobbing of Consort who was still kneeling on the ground. Lillian Consort shot me a triumphant glance before walking out first. The others soon followed one after another. I stepped out of the palace and climbed into my sedan chair. Before we had gone very far, someone called out to me. I turned back. It was Lillian Consort She approached with a bright smile, not even offering a greeting. Instead, she spoke in that sweet, coquettish voice of hers. If this humble consort were in your ladyship's position, I certainly wouldn't come out and risk offending others. I would simply close my palace gates and rest quietly. Don't you think so, your ladyship? My heart was startled, not because of Lady Who, but because in just 3 months without my management, the harem had already descended into such chaos. In all my more than 10 years in the palace, I had never seen anyone behave so insolently. For a moment, I truly did not know how to respond. I glanced at Jade and Lotus. The expressions on their faces showed more astonishment than anger. After thinking for a moment, I smiled. Sister Who is absolutely right. This palace's body is weak now. Who knows how much longer I will even live? Perhaps it is better to return to my palace and rest, rather than come out and become an eyesore for others. After saying that, I ignored the shocked look on her face and ordered the attendants to carry my sedan chair back to my palace. The moment we entered the palace, Lotus finally regained her senses. Your ladyship, why didn't you reprimand her? She was clearly humiliating you. She is only a mere Jehu. I raised my hand to stop her, but my mind was still calculating. At first, I had thought Selena Zhou possessed at least some ability to sit upon the throne of Empress. But now, it seemed, I spoke quietly. Jade. Lotus. The two of them stepped closer. Lowering my voice, I instructed, spread the news of today's humiliation as quickly as possible. But do not allow anyone to grasp any evidence against us. And also spread word that the Empress forbids birth mothers from seeing their children. As well as Consort Who's disrespectful behavior. I paused, then asked, is the Who woman currently a favored concubine? I beckoned to a young eunuch who had been standing quietly in the corner. What about the matter I asked you to investigate? The eunuch bowed his head. Your ladyship, at present His Majesty spends most of each month with Her Majesty the Empress. For the remaining days, he is mostly with Consort Who. The other noble ladies and concubines receive only a few scattered days. People close to the Empress also reported that last month His Majesty and the Empress quarreled once. It seemed vaguely related to Consort Who. And the month before that, they also argued once. Apparently because of your ladyship. After those 2 arguments, His Majesty treated the Empress coldly for 7 or 8 days, but afterward they reconciled. I nodded slowly. At first it was only a few hours. Then 1 or 2 days. Then 3 or 4 days. Now it has become 7 or 8 days. I waved my hand for the eunuch to leave, then I turned to Jade and Lotus, spread the rumor that the Who woman lacks virtue and has caused discord between the Emperor and the Empress. As for the rest, you may improvise. Just make sure this matter reaches the ears of my elder brothers. But remember, act carefully. Absolutely do not let anyone discover the truth. Jade nodded. Lotus laughed lightly. This servant would never boast. But your ladyship's people are scattered throughout the palace. Without even leaving the gates, we can grasp everything that happens inside the inner palace. Who could possibly discover anything? And even if someone did investigate, they would never trace it back to us. All our people are loyal. I lowered my gaze and gently stroked the silver nail guard engraved with plum blossoms and set with jade. Do not be careless. At first, I thought Selina Zhou simply lacked the ability to manage the palace. But I did not expect the inner palace to show signs of chaos so quickly. A cold smile appeared on my lips. In the past, I exhausted myself managing those restless people. And yet he showed no gratitude. If he no longer wishes for me to manage the harem, then I do not mind letting this place become even more chaotic. I stood up and stretched lazily. The Emperor and Empress are not an ordinary husband and wife who only worry about love. Let us see how he feels about the Empress he personally chose. Lotus stepped forward to help me remove my outer robe and said with a smile, "Your ladyship should simply rest. For all these years, you have spent so much effort for His Majesty, yet he never understood. Now let them see. Without your ladyship, how long can the inner palace remain peaceful under Selina Zhou's management?" Before long, problems began appearing in palace affairs. First came the matter of the birthday tribute for Dowager Consort Jinkong. The gifts prepared were somewhat careless, which displeased the Dowager Consort. One had to know that Dowager Consort Jinkong had been a consort during the reign of the late Emperor Victor. She was already 80 years old and the eldest elder in the palace. Even Empress Dowager Helena did not dare treat her lightly. Soon after, a vassal state presented a batch of tribute gifts, but the distribution among the consorts was unfair, which stirred quite a bit of unrest. Not long afterward, even the imperial children became involved in trouble. When Consort who went to visit the fourth prince, she discovered that the weather had already turned cold, but the charcoal supply in the fourth prince's chambers had been reduced. She immediately dragged people with her to Qianjing Hall, knelt down, and the moment she saw the emperor, she burst into tears. At that time, the emperor was already troubled by the war in the northwest. His head ached from the matter, and his mood was extremely foul. After hearing the complaint, he merely scolded the empress with a few words and let the matter pass. The empress, however, still looked aggrieved. Soon after, Consort who ran to find me, crying angrily. She complained bitterly. She kept saying that the princes are all supplied according to official allocations. Lucas Zheng said nothing, but apparently I'm the one who's always making trouble. But everyone knows that Victor Zheng was born prematurely and has a weak constitution. Every autumn, charcoal must be burned daily in his chambers. How could those fixed allocations possibly be enough? Elder sister, when you were managing palace affairs, the children were never made to suffer. But now that it's her turn, everything is reduced to rigid quotas and regulations. I don't think she has the slightest pity for the children. Just because she is the legal mother, she treats the other princes as if they are nothing. They claim it's according to the regulations, but the last time I visited Lucas Zheng, I saw that he didn't even have enough winter clothes. The child was shivering from the cold. Even though he's not my son, I still couldn't bear to see it. I'm afraid she thinks that since she has a legitimate son, she wants to suppress all the other princes to feel satisfied. And what legitimate son? Everyone knows exactly what tricks she used to become empress. She's only the daughter of a minor editor. In terms of background, how could she possibly compare with the other high-ranking consorts? Yet she struts about all day as if she were so capable. I kept a sorrowful expression on my face while listening to her. From time to time, I told Jade to pour her more tea. Consort who was clearly so furious that she had lost all sense of reason. Normally she was one of the most cautious people, yet now every word she spoke was filled with disrespect. But I did not stop her. Instead, I quietly dismissed all the attendants and sent Jade and Lotus outside as well. To be honest, everything Consort who said suited my heart perfectly. Listening to her complaints felt extremely satisfying. After venting for quite a while, she finally stopped. She picked up the teacup, took a large gulp, and set it down again. Only then did she look a little embarrassed. I was too hot-tempered today. I made elder sister sit here listening to my nonsense. How shameful of me. I smiled. With me, why should you be so polite? We both lived in the Crown Prince's residence before. When have I ever insisted on strict etiquette with you? Then I withdrew my smile slightly. But whatever you say to me here is fine. Once you step outside this door, you must never speak of the Empress again. Consort who sighed as she looked at me, elder sister, you have always been the most kind and virtuous person. Back in the Crown Prince's residence, who didn't remember your kindness? When it came to caring for the children, you treated them all as your own. I truly admire you. Back then, when the fourth princess was struck by an epidemic, it was you who risked your life to save her. I could never repay that kindness even in a lifetime. The position of Empress should have been yours. If you had become Empress, this palace would never have fallen into such chaos. I really don't understand what His Majesty was thinking. I lowered my head and said softly, you know His Majesty's feelings for her are deep. It has been 8 or 9 years now. Have we not always been suppressed by her during that time? Consort who let out a cold laugh. Before I married, my mother told me that His Highness the Crown Prince and Miss Xiao were childhood sweethearts with a bond deeper than anyone else's. She told me to be virtuous and tolerant when I entered the household. And yet the famous childhood romance known throughout the capital was cut apart by that woman within a single year. Elder sister, don't resent His Majesty. In the end, whether a man is affectionate or heartless, don't we all understand it by now? As for me, after 10 years of sharing his bed and even giving him 2 children, what has become of me? When I gave birth to Victor Zheng, my body was damaged. From that moment, His Majesty turned away from me as if he had forgotten I ever existed. Now even Consort who dares to confront me. She carefully studied my expression, elder sister. You don't still think about His Majesty, do you? This humble consort dares to say one thing. Do you remember how that pregnancy of yours was lost back then? Your ladyship, Lotus hurriedly spoke up, realizing she had said too much. Consort who immediately fell silent and looked at me nervously. My child. Pain twisted sharply in my chest. A trace of coldness appeared on my face. I have not forgotten. Even if I forget everything else in this world, I could never forget that child. But now I am no longer favored. I have no children. The position of Empress has been taken from me. My body is also ruined. What else can I possibly do? I can only wait for death. Perhaps my words sounded too miserable. Consort who looked frightened. After a long pause, she finally spoke again, elder sister. Do you think your illness might have been caused by someone harming you? At last, she had finally reached the point. My heart stirred slightly, yet my expression remained calm. Harmed by whom? At that time, His Majesty forced me to relinquish the position of Empress. Surely he would not wish to smear himself with such suspicions. Not His Majesty. Consort who quickly shook her head. I mean the person in Phoenix Ceremony Palace. She lowered her voice. Don't you suspect her? I still remember clearly, back in the Crown Prince's residence, she was the one who personally delivered that bowl of medicine to your chambers. Afterward, His Majesty protected her with all his strength. Don't you suspect her at all? I lowered my head and remained silent. After a long time, I finally looked up again, my expression weary. I am tired. Another day, I will invite you to drink tea again. I watched as Consort, whose expression shifted, from pity to sorrow, then to anger. Finally she stood up and left. Lotus clapped her hands softly and laughed. Your ladyship's move was brilliant. Consort, who has connections everywhere. With this rumor spreading, that person will never be able to defend herself, even if she had 100 mouths. I shook my head with a smile. I never intended to use this matter to harm her. But when Consort who mentioned it just now, I realized something. My sudden illness must already have aroused suspicion. If we don't make use of this opportunity, wouldn't we be wasting it? Jade frowned slightly. Your ladyship. Could it be that the first prince and the fourth prince were truly treated poorly by the empress? No, I shook my head firmly. She has always been arrogant and indifferent toward the children. But she has never deliberately harmed them. Right now the war in the northwest is tense. The palace is trying to reduce expenses. I do not know what she was thinking, but perhaps she had been cutting expenses so severely that even the children's allowances had been reduced. I frowned slightly. There must be no one from our side inside Hongning Palace. Select a few of our people, give them some tea money, and slip them into Hongning Palace. Jade lowered her head. Yes, your ladyship. Then she withdrew. A sense of relief rose in my heart. The empress handled the palace affairs far too carelessly. She showed no concern for the children and had already offended many of the consorts. On the surface, Consort who did not appear especially favored, yet she possessed the strongest family background in the entire palace. She was connected to many great noble clans. The other consorts respected her, and behind her stood a powerful family, now that she and the empress had begun opposing each other. All I had to do was wait. Once the consorts grew angry and the empress lost both prestige and the trust of the people, I wanted to see whether she could still sit securely on that empress's throne. The palace remained in constant turmoil until the new year. Needless to say, even the festive season was filled with incidents. During the fireworks display, a stray spark accidentally set fire to firewood in Yongxing Palace. On New Year's Eve, a servant caught a cold and sneezed right in front of the high officials. During the Lantern Festival, the kitchen suddenly ran out of walnuts needed to make sweet dumplings. All of these were small matters, yet each one was enough to irritate people. Since ascending the throne, Adrian Zheng had endured everything silently. But eventually even Empress Dowager Helena could no longer tolerate it. Just after the first month began, she summoned the emperor to her palace. Half a day later he finally came out, after being scolded thoroughly, when the maidservant from the Empress Dowager's palace came to report the news. Even I could not help laughing. His Majesty must know he was in the wrong. He didn't dare argue back even a single word. Lotus laughed endlessly. Your ladyship. At that moment Jade hurried in. Someone just reported that after His Majesty left the Empress Dowager's palace, he immediately went to Phoenix Ceremony Palace. It seems he argued fiercely with the Empress again. Right now His Majesty is furious and pacing around the Imperial Garden. It looks like he might come here soon. Quick! I immediately threw down the handful of raisins I had been eating and hurried into the inner chamber. Come help me change clothes. Where is Sparrow? Call her over to do my makeup. Use the same makeup as when I fell ill last time. All of you stay here and attend me. Your expressions must look sorrowful, as if you are keeping vigil over my coffin. Do you understand? The news spread quickly. Before long, a voice announced from outside, "His Majesty has arrived." Moments later, Adrian Jing stepped inside. Before his eyes lay a woman on the bed, pale as paper, breathing faintly. It was Serena Xiao. Lotus and Jade stood beside the bed, their faces full of grief. When they bowed to greet him, tears even rolled down their cheeks. How did it become this serious? Adrian Zheng looked clearly startled. Has the imperial physician examined her? I replied weakly. The imperial physician comes every day to take my pulse. It is only that my blessings are too thin. A violent coughing fit followed immediately. He hurried forward and began patting my back in panic. I quickly lay back down. Don't touch me. That damned dog of an emperor. Didn't the empress say my health had already improved? Didn't she say I could even go and cause trouble for her? Didn't she also punish me with kneeling? Was I already this sick back then? As I watched, Adrian Zheng's expression gradually darkened. I quickly added another blow. Paying respects to Her Majesty the Empress is my duty. No matter how poor my health is, I cannot fail to cough. Lotus hurriedly handed me some tea. Adrian Zheng's face grew gloomy as he seemed lost in thought. Paying respects to the Empress, the once proud Serena Xiao, who never bowed her head to anyone, had now become like this. Look at you. What has it come to? And whose fault is that? Inside, I gritted my teeth in anger, yet on the surface, tears filled my eyes. Since childhood, I was taught to follow etiquette and uphold proper conduct. Within the palace, everything must be considered for His Majesty. Now that Your Majesty has made me a consort, I must naturally obey Her Majesty the Empress. But Her Majesty the Empress. She. Cough. What about the Empress? He took the medicine bowl from Lotus while asking, Her Majesty the Empress is very good. She treats me well. She treats the entire harem very well. Your Majesty need not worry. With pitiful eyes, I drank the medicine he personally fed me. Adrian Jing stared at me intently. It seemed as though he wanted to say something, yet could not bear to. Perhaps he was suspicious. After all, Serena Xiao had always been strong-willed and fond of arguing with him. How had she suddenly become like a completely different person? But seeing me so gravely ill, he could not bring himself to mock me. I ignored the probing look in his eyes and spoke softly. Your Majesty hasn't visited in a long time. Did you come today for something? Adrian Jing hesitated for a moment before speaking. Selena Zhou is managing palace affairs for the first time. She lacks experience, and mistakes happen frequently. Mayan, you have always handled matters most thoroughly. Could you, cough. I immediately burst into another violent coughing fit. He wanted me to help Selena Zhou handle the work. Clearly he was looking for someone to take the blame for the woman he loved. Back when I managed palace affairs, even the smallest mistake would earn me harsh reprimands from him. I never saw him asking anyone to help me. It was exhausting work with not a single word of gratitude. Why would I accept it now? If Selena Zhou wanted to sit on the Empress's throne, she should understand one thing. If you wish to wear the crown, you must bear its weight. Now Adrian Zheng had nothing more to say. Making a sick person work. Forget about basic humanity. I simply couldn't do it. Suddenly, Adrian Zheng sat down beside me and lowered his head. Mayan, you really managed to avoid all this trouble because of your illness. Right now the entire palace is in chaos. The Empress can't handle anything, yet she blames me. My mother blames me too. In court, the officials from the Ministry of Rights somehow heard the rumors and submitted a pile of memorials accusing the Empress. They say she fails to maintain order in the palace and shows no compassion to the imperial children. They even accused my favored consort. The war in the Northwest is already tense, yet I can't find a moment of peace. Even inside the palace, people are saying the Empress is cruel. He suddenly fell silent. After a moment, he grasped my hand. Mayan, I truly miss the days when you were still healthy. Cough, cough, I coughed at the worst possible moment, Your Majesty. Cough. My body. Cough. Is truly too weak. When I recover a little, I will help Your Majesty worry about these matters. Cough. Adrian Zheng, Mayan, cough. Cough. I cough. I'll leave now. Adrian Zheng seemed somewhat angry, but since I was a sick person, he had no reason to lose his temper. I'll come visit you again. He strode quickly out of the room, even knocking over a glass vase by the door. Farewell, and please don't come back. Next time, if you want to argue with the Empress, go argue with her. Don't come looking for me. The moment he left, I immediately sat up and stretched my limbs. When Lotus and Jade came to help me, the four of us exchanged glances. In the end, we could not hold back any longer and burst into delighted laughter. Soon, the entire palace hall was filled with cheerful energy. Watching the Emperor and Selena Zhou suffer like this truly brought one of life's greatest joys. Still laughing, I thought to myself, after the first month of the year, the entire palace seemed drained of spirit. No one had any festive energy left. The early spring weather remained cold and bleak. Even though I stayed inside the palace all day, I somehow caught a chill. Perhaps after His Majesty's last visit, someone had leaked the news that I was gravely ill. As a result, even Ening Palace could no longer sit quietly. In the second month, Empress Dowager Helena personally came to visit me. Unfortunately, at that moment I truly did look weak and sickly. Your Majesty the Empress Dowager, why have you come? Cough, I should have been the one to go and pay my respects to you. This is improper etiquette. Startled, I hurriedly tried to get out of bed. Sit down. You have always been so strong-willed. How did you let yourself become like this? The Empress Dowager looked full of pity as she pressed me back onto the bed. The two of us sat facing each other in silence for a long time. Neither of us spoke. To be honest, deep in my heart I held some resentment toward the Empress Dowager. Since childhood, I had grown up beside Grand Empress Dowager Catherine. But because the Grand Empress Dowager was already advanced in age, she could not personally teach and care for me in many matters. Back then, it was the Empress Dowager, who was still the Empress at the time, who took care of everything personally. In a way, she had watched me grow up. Our relationship was not shallow. When I first became the Crown Princess, I was afraid of making mistakes. It was the Empress Dowager who secretly guided and instructed me. I knew she was satisfied with me, but when her son insisted on making a concubine the Empress, I saw no strong opposition from her. In our dynasty, filial piety had always been valued above all. If the Empress Dowager had firmly refused to allow Selena Zhou to become Empress, His Majesty would not have been able to do anything. Yet the Empress Dowager also had her own difficulties. Adrian Zheng was not her biological son. He had been born to a palace maid and was only placed under the Empress Dowager's care at the age of 7. Because of this, Adrian Zheng's identity as the legitimate heir had never been entirely proper. Even late Emperor Victor had hesitated for a long time before appointing the Crown Prince. The direct reason he finally made his decision was because my father firmly supported Adrian Zheng. I still remember clearly the words my father spoke to me when he entered the palace. Meyer, in this world you need not worry about many things. But the distinction between legitimate and concubine-born heirs must never be ignored. The eldest son of the noble consort must absolutely not be made crown prince. If the line between legitimate and illegitimate heirs becomes confused, the ruler's position will lose its legitimacy. And if the ruler lacks legitimacy, the entire realm will fall into danger. At the time, I nodded blankly. In my mind, however, I was only thinking about the flowers that Adrian Zheng had placed in my hair during the night banquet, when he secretly led me outside to admire the lake. Since childhood, I had always known that the Shao family had been loyal subjects serving the emperor for generations. My father and eldest brother had both died on the battlefield. My second brother, Damien Shao, had risen to the position of Grand Secretary. My third brother, Victor Shao, was still guarding the frontier. Even my fourth brother, though not especially outstanding, worked diligently in the military selection office of the Ministry of War. I was the only daughter of this generation of the Shao family. From the moment I was born, it had already been decided that I would one day serve in the inner palace. When I was 8 years old, I was brought into the palace under the title of the future crown princess, before the crown prince had even been officially chosen. The reason I chose Adrian Zheng was not because he was the legitimate son. It was because I had once naively believed that the bond between childhood sweethearts was something one could entrust an entire lifetime to. Adrian Zheng and I were close in age. When I entered the palace, he had just been adopted by the Empress Dowager. While I struggled painfully to memorize palace rules and the women's virtues, he was also racking his brain studying the 4 books and 5 classics. The time we spent meeting in the palace of Grand Empress Dowager Catherine were the happiest moments of all. Together we complained about our strict tutors and the oppressive palace regulations. The adults, each with their own calculations, simply turned a blind eye. At that time, we were each other's best friends. What I did not know was that he had already begun to harbor the intention of using me to fight for the throne. He told me that his father disliked him and made things difficult for him everywhere. I believed him. So I used my own methods to help him. I built connections for him and tried my best to speak well of him in front of late Emperor Victor. Now that I think about it, the reason the late emperor disliked Adrian Zheng was probably much simpler. It was likely because he was both vicious and foolish. I was delighted when I became his crown princess. Yet he was worried that my family might one day become a threat to him. He never understood that my father and my brothers supported him not because I had chosen him, but because the imperial court had already chosen him. He always feared that the Shao family might change sides and drag him down from the throne. Only someone with a crooked heart would suspect others with such malice. 1 year after I married him, I became pregnant, but a newly entered beauty in the residence killed my child with nothing more than a single bowl of medicine. Not long after, that same beauty was diagnosed as pregnant. He told me that she was the woman he had loved for a long time, and he would never allow her to suffer any grievance. At that time, my father and my brothers had just died on the battlefield. Their bodies were not even cold yet. Meanwhile, he happily stayed beside Selina Zhou, eagerly awaiting the birth of their child, and now he even wanted to seize the position of principal wife from me. What are you thinking about? The Empress Dowager Helena gently patted my hand, interrupting my thoughts. Startled, I suddenly realized that at some point my face had already revealed traces of resentment. I hurriedly concealed my emotions. I was only thinking about my illness. Oh, come now. I watched you grow up. Who are you trying to hide it from? The Empress Dowager sighed softly. You resent them, don't you? I said nothing. If I were in your place, would resent them as well. The Empress Dowager spoke frankly. Do you think my life was easy in the past? The late emperor was always cold toward me. He only favored Consort Shu, Consort Shun, and Consort Qing. He never even glanced at me. In truth, my life was far more miserable than yours. I gave birth to the legitimate son. Yet I could not raise him to adulthood. She paused, a trace of pain appeared clearly between her brows. The rule of establishing the legitimate heir and the eldest son. If there had been no legitimate son, that would have been another matter. But even after I adopted the emperor as my son, the late emperor still preferred to make the son of Consort Shu the crown prince rather than my child. Was that not the same as slapping me across the face? You don't hate him? I asked softly. Hate? I don't have the ability to hate. The Empress Dowager looked toward the corner of the room where golden geese were carved into the wall, their wings spread in flight. I am not even as fortunate as you. At least behind you stands the Shao family. What could I possibly hate? Not only could I not hate, I could not even resent him. I had to devote all my strength to pleasing the late emperor and raising the crown prince properly. If I was not favored, then even the slightest mistake could have doomed me forever. You are far more capable than I ever was. After all, His Majesty still holds some feelings for you. The Empress Dowager patted my hand gently. Feelings? I could not help letting out a faint cold laugh. The Empress Dowager did indeed feel some affection toward me, but that affection was probably far less than her calculations. Back then, how could she not have seen what kind of feelings Adrian Zheng had for me? Yet she still wholeheartedly supported our relationship, all because she wanted to borrow my power to help her son secure the position of crown prince. I understood all of this perfectly well, but now that things had reached this point, why bother speaking such hypocritical words? She was merely afraid that resentment in my heart might disrupt the stability of the harem, and because my background was too powerful, it was not easy to deal with me directly, so she could only act out this play of affection to draw me to her side. If I were not Serena Shao, but instead Li Mayan or Lu Mayan, I feared that before the emperor even ascended the throne, he would have already granted me a cup of poisoned wine. I gently withdrew my hand. Your Majesty is right. It is only that my health is poor. I hope your Majesty will not stay too long, lest it harm your precious health. You won't even address me as your daughter-in-law anymore? The Empress Dowager was not angry. She only looked at me with pity. Mayan, I know what you are thinking. I only wish to say one sincere thing. I truly care about you. She sighed again. I know you resent me for failing to protect your position as Empress. But you also know how cold-hearted the Emperor can be toward me. If I had pressed too hard, I fear that by now, in his eyes, would no longer even be his mother. Even now, how much authority do you think I truly have over the affairs of the palace? This Ening Palace is nothing more than a place that exists for him to demonstrate filial piety. Suddenly, the Empress Dowager's expression became serious. Mayan, you must not drown yourself in hatred. The Imperial Palace is already in chaos. I know you are secretly pleased to stand aside and watch it unfold. But do not forget, you are still part of this harem. And behind you stand your brothers. If the palace continues to fall into disorder, who knows what might happen in the future? Don't wait until everything becomes beyond saving before regretting it. Mayan, you have always been intelligent and sharp. You cannot possibly fail to understand. She patted my hand again. From what I see, I fear that a great upheaval may soon come. The emperor is foolish, and the empress is like mud that cannot hold a wall upright. In this imperial palace, and among the princes, I'm afraid the only person left who can be relied upon is you. Well then, my good child, think about it carefully. After speaking, the Empress Dowager rose and left. She left me sitting there in silent contemplation. A moment later, Jade stepped in quietly. Your ladyship? I lifted my head. My expression was complicated. Jade. For the first time, I truly don't know what I should do. In the following days, everything continued as usual. I closed my doors and remained inside, focusing solely on recovering from my illness. There was no further news from the Empress Dowager. The Emperor and the Empress continued arguing endlessly. Adrian Jing did not come to see me again either. On the first day of the 3rd month, the weather was bright and warm. I had just ordered someone to move a reclining chair into the courtyard so I could lie outside and enjoy the sunlight. Suddenly, Lin rushed in breathlessly. Your Highness. Your Highness. Something terrible has happened. The third prince has met with disaster. Startled, I immediately grabbed her hand. What happened to Julian? Speak clearly. Lin was so anxious she was almost in tears. It's Hongming Palace. No one knows what was added to the food, but the 3 princes were suddenly poisoned. Among them, the 3rd prince was affected the most. He's almost not going to make it. My mind instantly went blank. Hurry. Prepare the sedan chair at once. I'm going to Hongming Palace immediately. But before anyone could move, a sudden commotion erupted outside the palace gates. A large group of people entered the courtyard. At their head was a eunuch who strode directly toward me. Kneeling servant carries the emperor's decree. Noble consort Serena Xiao is suspected of plotting to harm the princes. By imperial order, this entire palace is to be sealed. Anyone involved is strictly forbidden to leave. Those who disobey will be beaten to death. By command. I froze as they slammed my palace gates shut. All the servants were driven into the side hall. The eunuch then bowed to me with an expressionless face. Your Highness, you are currently under suspicion. Please remain here patiently. What happens next will be decided when His Majesty arrives. He lowered his head. This servant has been disrespectful. Before I could respond, Adrian Jing suddenly stepped forward and slapped me violently across the face. The force of it made me stagger. You wouldn't even spare my own son? How vicious can you be? My mind was in complete chaos. All I could think about was Julian, the Emperor's fury, my own safety. None of it mattered. Julian. How is Julian? I want to see him. You still have the face to see him? Adrian slapped me again, sending me collapsing to the ground. Hear my decree. Serena Xiao, cruel and vicious, stripped of her noble rank and thrown into the cold palace. His face was flushed with rage as he pointed at me. If anything happens to Julian, I will tear you into 1,000 pieces. That slap finally snapped something inside me. All the injustices I had endured. All the humiliation I had swallowed, the anger buried deep within my heart suddenly exploded. I pointed straight at the emperor and shouted, Adrian Zheng. You can kill me anytime you wish, but condemning me so casually right now will only make the true culprit behind this laugh in the shadows. What right do you have to say that I poisoned the prince? Adrian looked both shocked and furious. The one who carried out the poisoning has already confessed it was done under your orders. What more do you have to deny? He barked an order to the guards beside him. Why are you still standing there? Take this vile woman away. I dare any of you to try. My shout frightened everyone around us into silence. Adrian Zheng, has pig fat blinded your eyes? I have always treated Julian as my own son. If you blindly kill me now, the person truly responsible will be the happiest of all. You're an emperor, yet your vision is this shallow. I feel ashamed for you. After saying that, I ignored his face turning purple with fury and pointed forward. Lead the way. We're going to Hongming Palace. You wretch. The moment I stepped into the inner hall, I saw Selina Zhou rushing at me like a madwoman, scratching and clawing. You poisoned my Julian. How could you poison my Julian? I'll kill you. Get lost. Ignoring all etiquette, I shoved her away. I poisoned Julian? Selina Zhou, do you even have a brain? I turned directly to the imperial physician. How is the third prince? The chief physician was sweating coldly. Your Highness. The poison is extremely severe. This humble servant has done everything possible, but... He hesitated, unable to finish the sentence. My heart clenched. Tell me clearly. How long can the third prince hold on? The physician dropped to the ground and kowtowed repeatedly. The poison is too strong. Without a specific antidote, it cannot be cured. But this servant still cannot determine what kind of poison it is, so an antidote cannot be prepared. At present, His Highness is being kept alive with aged ginseng. But if the antidote cannot be found, he will only last 2 more days. My heavens! On the other side, when Selina Zhou heard this, she burst into hysterical sobs and rushed toward me again. You vicious woman. Tell us what poison you used. Say it now. Hurry. Slap! I struck her hard across the face, sending her sprawling. Then I raised my voice and ordered, the Empress has gone mad. Take her away and guard her. Before the third prince wakes up, she is not allowed to approach the inner hall. Seeing the Empress's attendants trying to protect their mistress, I added coldly, everyone from the Empress's palace is to be closely monitored as well. No one is allowed to cause trouble. The Shao family was a military clan. Even as a child, I had been trained somewhat by my father and brothers. That slap nearly knocked Selina Zhou unconscious. Watching them being dragged away, I quickly hurried to Julian's bedside. The boy who had always been lively and healthy now lay pale as paper, his limbs icy cold. My heart twisted in agony. Suppressing my fury, I asked Jade, where is the one who carried out the poisoning? They've already been taken to the Judicial Palace office. Jade replied. It's the deputy steward from the Imperial kitchen. Your Highness, should we go interrogate them? Yes. I gritted my teeth. Let's see if I can pry the truth out of her. Then a thought suddenly crossed my mind. Lotus, go investigate that person's background. I'm afraid they may not simply be someone from the palace. When I arrived at the Judicial Palace office with my attendants, the palace servant had already been bound and was waiting for interrogation. Ironically, by now nearly everyone in the palace had received the imperial decree stripping me of my title, yet no one dared oppose my orders. Perhaps it was because of the row of palace guards standing behind me, each gripping a wooden staff. If gods stood in my way, I would kill the gods. If Buddhas blocked my path, I would kill the Buddhas. That was how Serena Shao handled things. I stared coldly at the bound servant. Tell me, I said, forcing down the raging anger in my chest. Who ordered you to do this? It was you, wasn't it, Your Highness? The palace servant glared at me, even carrying a trace of mockery in her eyes. I strode forward and kicked her hard, sending her rolling across the floor. A gasp echoed through the hall. Who ordered you? I grabbed her chin tightly and demanded. The servant was clearly frightened, yet she still refused to speak. It was you, noble consort Serena Shao. You were the one who ordered it. Slap. 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 I struck her across the face 4 or 5 times in a row, then followed with 2 punches straight into her eyes. Before she could even catch her breath, my fists kept coming, smashing into her nose again and again until she screamed in agony. I grabbed her by the hair and demanded again, "Who ordered you?" By now she was trembling in terror, crying uncontrollably. Seeing my fist rise once more, she hurriedly screamed, "It wasn't you. Not you, Your Highness. It was my own idea. No one ordered me." Furious, I was about to strike again when Lin stepped forward and pulled me back. "Your Highness, please calm down. Someone like her isn't worth your anger." She leaned close and whispered a few words into my ear. After hearing them, I let out a cold laugh. "Mira Shen, is it? You live at Lotus Pavilion. At home you have your parents, your elder brothers and their wives, and 2 younger sisters who are not yet married. And 3 nephews." As I spoke, fear slowly crept across her face. I continued calmly, "Do you truly believe the person who ordered you will grant you and your family wealth and glory? I'm afraid they'll wipe your entire family out instead, to prevent any questioning from the Emperor and the Empress. Even me. Do you know how long it would take for me to drag your entire family into the palace?" Her face immediately turned deathly pale. After a long moment of struggling, she finally broke down and burst into tears. I'll talk. It was Consort who. She promised to give this servant 1,000 taels of gold. I was blinded by greed and agreed. But she only said it was medicine to make the princes have diarrhea. I didn't know it was such deadly poison. Your Highness, this servant never meant to harm anyone. She cried and kowtowed repeatedly, but I was already grinding my teeth in fury. I immediately ordered the officials of the Judicial Palace office. "You heard her, didn't you? Why are you still standing there? Bring Consort Hu here at once." When I brought Consort Hu back to Homing Palace, Adrian Zheng was already there. The moment he saw me, he angrily demanded, "Who gave you permission to imprison the Empress? Where did you get the courage for that?" I replied coldly, "This concubine is timid. I only dared to imprison one empress. But your Majesty's beloved consort dared to poison the princes." I showed no mercy. With a signal, I ordered the guards to release her from the ropes. "Speak. Why did you poison the princes?" Consort Hu immediately burst into tears. "Your Majesty, please uphold justice for this concubine. Noble consort Serena Shao tortured that servant and forced her to frame me." Sure enough, Adrian Zheng immediately flew into a rage. "Serena Shao, you..." I let out a cold laugh, cutting him off before he could continue, as expected of a foolish ruler. "You believe whatever your favorite consort says with just a few words, without even looking at the evidence. You simply follow your own whims." Lowering my head, I gripped Consort Hu's chin and said in an icy voice, "You were born into a collateral branch of the Hu family in Jiangyuan. Since childhood, you grew up in the fief of the Prince of Changsha. As the daughter of a noble family, you frequently entered and exited the prince's residence. Long ago, you and the Prince of Changsha privately pledged yourselves to each other. But unfortunately for you, the man you loved asked you to enter the palace and serve his younger brother, the current emperor. At the same time, you were to kill every prince in the palace to clear the path for the Prince of Changsha to seize the throne. Am I wrong? Before Consort who could answer, I leaned close to her ear and whispered softly. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.